So today we're going to talk about some of the lesser things that may be known about moving here to Salt Lake City, that if you are thinking about making a move, you are thinking about relocating here, these are some things that I think you should probably know before you make a move here, and we're going to hop into it right now. Mariah Koehle here. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if this is your very first time here. I'm a licensed and active real estate agent here in the Salt Lake City, Utah area, and this channel is literally everything you need to know about eating, working, playing, sleeping, and living in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. If that is of interest to you, consider subscribing down below. Make sure you tap that bell for notifications so you are notified every week we drop a new video. We hear from people like you all the time who are looking to move, who are looking to relocate, buy or sell a property here, and we absolutely love it. So if you're thinking about making a move in a week, in a month, or even a year from now, feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, and my team and I would absolutely love to help you out. So some of the things that may be lesser known, or maybe be lesser on your radar if you are thinking about making a move here to Utah, this is kind of a list of things you should probably know. Number one, we have to talk about weather, and what I like to kind of say, extreme weather. Yes, extreme weather. Again, this depends where you are living in and around Salt Lake City, and it depends honestly on the year. Some years, the winter and the weather here, I remember when we first moved here a few years ago, people were like, oh, this was a mild winter. This was a really mild winter. And I remember thinking like, oh, yes, it snowed, and yes, we got snow, but it melted really fast. And it didn't become one of those things where I was like, oh, I could have used snow tires. I could have not used snow tires. It was one of those things where it kind of went one way or another, and it really didn't seem like it mattered that much. So with the weather, same thing goes for the summer. Yes, the summer months. Some summers you are going to have some really, really hot days, 100-degree days. And then other summers like this summer, yeah, there were several 90-degree days, but it cooled way down at nighttime, and it just felt pleasant. Like, to me, it felt great. So depending on what you can handle for the winter, and the weather, really, winter, spring, summer, fall, January and February are going to be your coldest months here in Utah, and then July and August are usually going to be your hottest months in the summertime. So kind of knowing that, but number one is weather, and that can be extremes, but also something about the weather and the winter and the summer here to know is it is a very dry area. So because it's dry, you're not going to feel a lot of that humidity. So in some of the other surrounding areas, or if you're back east, or if you are more down south, you're going to feel a lot of that humidity. Here in Utah, you really don't feel a lot of that humidity. So the hot doesn't feel as hot, and the cold doesn't feel as cold, just because of the lack of humidity. So that's number one thing that you should know. Number two is the altitude. Yes, the altitude and the elevation that is here in Salt Lake. For some people, when you are coming to a higher altitude level, sometimes people will feel a little bit sick or a little bit nauseous when they first get here, or if you have, respiratory issues, it might be a little bit harder to breathe. I remember I played soccer in college, and I remember the first time that I came out here for one of the soccer games, and I'm playing a couple of the universities here in and around Salt Lake City, and I remember like running down the field thinking like, oh my gosh, I can hardly breathe. This feels so difficult, simply because of the altitude. But as you climatize to the weather and acclimate to it, you will get, you'll get used to the elevation, you'll get used to the altitude. But just know that for some, they're affected a little bit more. For some, they're, not affected as much. So that's the next thing you should know. Moving right along, let's talk about the air quality. The air quality here in Utah is usually very nice. It's very pleasant, but we do get something called the inversion. Yes, the inversion is a thick, smoggy air that it's basically a storm that gets trapped right here in the Salt Lake area. And once it gets trapped, it really doesn't, release. It doesn't get out of this little valley until a storm blows it out. So it can stay here for a few days before it gets cleared out. For some that have, health problems, that's a major concern. But for others, it's like, okay, you experience it a couple of times during the year, not awesome, but also not a deal breaker. So you can tell, today the air quality, the weather is, phenomenal. So know that. air quality, elevation, and also those winter months, and that, you know, those weather conditions can be a factor for some people. Moving right along, another thing that you should know in and around Salt Lake City, there is a, you know, predominant religion here in Salt Lake City is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It is heavily influenced. You will see a lot of, you know, church buildings in and around. You'll see temples and, you know, church buildings in and around, and there is a heavy influence on that. Some people love that and they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is exactly what we're looking for. Other people are like, oh, I really don't know much about that religion, but I'm open, and, you know, I'm this religion and they're this. And so, but very welcoming, inviting. So that is something that you should also know. Outdoor recreation here is a huge one. There are so many people that love indoor and outdoor recreation here. This is something I did not know before we moved here, were the number of indoor recreational activities that are here in Utah. The number of indoor swimming pools, the indoor tennis courts, the indoor pickleball courts, the indoor, you know, the gyms are, you know, next level, and the indoor running tracks that I had not experienced when we had moved here before. So I thought, oh, you know what? A lot of, even though you're gonna have some cold winters, there are a lot of things for you to do in and around. And also know this too, many of the cities have their own recreation center. Yeah, a lot of the cities have their own recreational center. If you are a resident of that, you know, that area, that city, you typically get a much more discounted rate. So for a few $100s a year, yes, for a few $100s a year, many of these recreation centers, you have full access to the gym, the swimming pool, the pickleball courts, the indoor tracks, all of that stuff, literally like at your fingertips. Many of the communities here in Salt Lake too, there's a community called Daybreak that is right outside of Salt Lake City. It's in South Jordan, and it's got its own little, you know, centers and villages all around, and it's got its own kind of community rec centers built right in that community. So there are many of those sort of things here as well. So if you're thinking, oh, you know what? Yes, I love doing all those things, and I'm not a huge fan of the snow, or I am a huge fan of the snow. Either way, there are going to be a lot of things for you to do here. The 5 mighty national parks are in southern Utah, and you're about 3.5 hours away. You've got Bryce Canyon and Arches and Capitol Reef and Canyonlands. All of those are going to be down in southern Utah, and the accessibility to those are very easy. So you can make a day trip down there. You can, you know, take a lot longer, but the accessibility to that. And speaking of accessibility, some people don't know this, but the Salt Lake International Airport is literally, you know, 10 minutes from downtown Salt Lake City. So in and out of that airport are really easy. So if you are commuting and you're in and out, or you like to travel a lot, all of that, the accessibility to that is really, really nice. Another thing you should know if you are thinking about making a move here to Salt Lake City, that some people know, some people don't know, but it is a very clean city. It is a very clean city. Yes, you'll see trash here and there, but compared to so many of the other cities that we have lived in before, we came here and we were like, there is no trash. Like the amount of trash, the homeless, all of that, it is relatively really, really clean, safe city with low unemployment rates. So the unemployment rate is less than 3% here, which is very low. So a lot of people are working. It's a clean city. The crime is low. So for many, that is a huge draw of making a move here. So hopefully this gives you an idea of some of the things. Maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't know this before thinking about making a move here, but again, just kind of to recap, it's clean, it's family friendly, the accessibility in and out, a lot of different jobs that you can experience here. Some people, there's a little bit of a culture shock coming in, so know that. Also know about that inversion, that winter, sometimes those storms will blow in, they'll sit until that air pushes its way out. So if you are thinking about making a move or relocating here to the Salt Lake City, Utah area, my team and I hear from people like you all the time, and we absolutely love it. So feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, and it would be our pleasure to connect with you and see how we can help. Take care, and wishing you a wonderful day. Bye.